Hey, it's Mark Robideau. Welcome to this IFR Mastery Challenge. In today's scenario, our pilot gets a bit of a shock. The departure airport is reporting 3,000-foot ceilings, but that's still not high enough for a standard departure due to terrain in the area. There's no obstacle departure procedure, but there are other options that seem like perfectly reasonable ways to depart. However, our instructor shot them all down. We'll present you with 5 different departure options. Then our instructor will explain how he evaluated each one and why he didn't like any of them. Take this challenge and see if you agree with our instructor, or maybe you decide to fly one of these departures. Let's get started with the scenario.
You, your spouse, and your 2 kids have spent Thanksgiving break helping your parents move into their new home in Franklin, North Carolina. Your Mooney made quick work of the trip from Louisville, Kentucky in good VFR under a high overcast. The route down was basically direct to Knoxville before detouring a bit south to follow a river over more hospitable terrain. This took you up the valley to the Macon County Airport. Following the river offered a good study of the surrounding terrain, which you thought might be important when it came time to leave. Macon County has one instrument approach, albeit from the south, so you know it must be surveyed for a departure procedure as well. It looks like you'll use that procedure today. Macon County reports overcast 3,000 and 10 miles visibility. That's a low enough ceiling to obscure the mountaintops. However, the departure procedure stops you cold. There's no ODP offered, only a visual climb over the airport to 7,600 MSL, which is nearly 5,600 AGL. And there's more. You must remain within 3 nautical miles of the airport before crossing the airport southbound at 7,600 to join the Foothills VOR 349 degree radial to the VOR. You don't have 5,600 feet to the cloud bases, and Foothills is 30 miles in the wrong direction. What's the point of an IFR procedure if it requires a ceiling that's a mile above the airport? Your Mooney has a good climb rate. Combined with the terrain awareness on your GPS and iPad, you're confident you could remain within 3 miles of the airport, even if the last 2,000 feet was in the clouds. And is that trip to Foothills necessary? The departure procedure must protect for a departure in any possible direction. There's a 5,200-foot ridge on your route, but it's 20 miles from the airport. You could spiral up over the airport visually until reaching the cloud bases at about 5,000 MSL, and then turn to continue climbing on course. Given the Mooney's climb rate, you'd certainly clear the ridge with room to spare. Now that you think about it, the bases are higher than the MDA for the RNAV Alpha approach. You could load that approach and climb visually to cross the airport at the MDA. Then you'd activate the missed approach and fly that to the holding waypoint of Dale. You could file from Dale direct to home. Once more, you look down the valley you followed for arrival. Only the very tops of the mountains are in the clouds. There's no weather reporting until Knoxville, but it's showing good VFR with overcast 4,600. From there, it's good VFR all the way home. Jackson County, 12 miles east, is reporting 4 miles visibility and overcast 1,800. Western Carolina Regional, 20 miles west, is reporting 5 miles visibility and overcast 2,700. Everything south of Macon County is IFR. How will you depart? 1. File Foothills and then direct. Fly the full VCOA procedure, but use the GPS to stay within 3 nautical miles of the airport once IMC. 2. File direct. Fly the VCOA until reaching the cloud bases at 5,000 MSL, and then continue the climb on course. 3. File Dale direct. Climb over the airport visually to cross midfield at or above 3,620 on a course of 340, which is the final segment of the RNAV Alpha approach. Fly the published mist to Dale, and then proceed on course. 4. File IFR from Hind direct. Depart VFR down the valley to Hind to get a clearance airborne. 5. Stay on the ground. There's no safe and legal way to depart. Analyze the resources, and then make your choice.
Okay, so which option did you choose? Now we're going to hear from John Krug, who's a CFII and a former air traffic controller who helped set up new instrument approaches and departures for the FAA.
My choice is option 5, wait for better weather. Why take such a conservative approach when there appear to be several good options to depart under IFR? Well, when I reviewed this scenario, my first impression was that it wasn't a big deal. I could just whip up a few waypoints in ForeFlight and make my own departure. This isn't the Rocky Mountains after all. So I made a few waypoints, built them into a flight plan, and then looked at the profile view in ForeFlight. The first strike was within a mile of the airport. Not good. Then I looked back at the Visual Climb Over Airport, or VCOA. It was the first one I'd ever seen that had a distance restriction from the departure airport. Maybe it's a North Carolina thing. Western Carolina Regional has the same stipulation. The chart supplement from Macon County also has a note, rapidly rising terrain, all quadrants. It was starting to make sense why the FAA couldn't construct an ODP in the traditional sense. The VCOA is an alternative method for pilots to depart an airport where aircraft performance doesn't meet the specified climb gradient. Development of a VCOA is mandatory when obstacles more than 3 statute miles from the departure end of the runway require greater than a 200-foot per nautical mile climb gradient. The procedure designer must determine if any obstacles penetrate the 40-to-1 slope from the airport. If there are obstacles, such as exist around Macon, the designer must raise the floor of the VCOA by the height of the greatest penetration, add 250 feet, and then round up. Of course, tailwinds will increase ground speed and decrease an aircraft's climb gradient, so that gets factored in. The FAA TERPS order, which is the Bible for developing instrument procedures, says VCOA calculations shall include 30-knot tailwinds up to 2,000 feet MSL, 45-knot tailwinds up to 5,000 feet MSL, and 60-knot tailwinds up to 10,000 feet MSL. It also limits aircraft to a maximum bank angle of 23 degrees. All of this adds up to a VCOA at Macon requiring spiraling up within a specified distance from the airport until 5,700 feet overhead. And I can't stay visual to that altitude today. Do I need to? Choices 1 and 2 basically start the same way. I'd use my GPS with a moving map to stay within 3 miles of the airport while climbing. My Mooney will climb at about 700 feet per minute, up to 8,000 feet, using a VY climb of 105 knots. The turn radius at 105 knots is a little more than half a mile. That sounds like it should be no problem. The reality is I'd probably end up climbing at a faster indicated airspeed and certainly a faster true airspeed. This will result in a larger radius, but it's still less than 3 miles. The bigger problem is that any climb above 3,000 feet AGL would be an IMC. Going round and round in a circle with the nose high, trying to stay over an airport that you can only see on a moving map is an invitation for spatial disorientation or vertigo. Choice 2 differs from choice 1 in that the pilot would only spiral up to 5,000 MSL, which is the bottom of the overcast. From there, the pilot would climb on course to the northwest. A trip out to the foothills VOR probably isn't necessary for a northwest departure. VCOAs are designed so that once you reach the VCOA altitude, you may make a diverse departure, which is climbing 200 feet per nautical mile in any direction. If that's not feasible, then a departure route must be constructed to get the aircraft into the IFR route structure while providing terrain clearance. The only major obstacle to the northwest is a 5,200-foot ridge almost 20 miles away. That said, it would certainly be safer to go all the way to foothills. That would be my recommendation if the VCOA were a viable option. I don't recommend choice 3, using the missed approach procedure for the RNAV alpha approach to roll your own ODP. It looks feasible, but I rejected it for the same reasons. Yes, it is charted, but for a different procedure using different TERPS criteria. You can't mix one from column A and one from column B to make up your own procedure. What about choice 4, departing VFR down the valley and picking up the clearance over Hindi? The cloud bases are below the ridge tops all around Macon, but they're still 3,000 feet AGL or roughly 5,000 feet MSL. Jackson County Airport has a 1,800-foot ceiling. Correcting for the difference in field elevations, 2,034 feet at Macon versus 2,857 feet at Jackson means the clouds are roughly 4,650 feet MSL, 350 feet lower just 12 miles away and over the ridge. The 2,700-foot ceilings at Western Carolina sound better until you correct for that field elevation of 1,699 feet. So those clouds are at 4,400 MSL, the lowest of all. Flying down the valley is entering a blind canyon with a lid that might be highest at Macon and only gets lower. If the visibility was 10 miles or better, maybe you could have confidence that the route out wouldn't just close in, but visibilities are less. And you can't count on an IFR escape if it doesn't work out. Even if you could raise ATC, they probably couldn't see you on radar. The only way you could get an IFR climb would be by providing your own terrain and obstacle clearance, or by declaring an emergency. Finally, consider these 2 points. If the FAA, with an army of trained TERPS specialists in Oklahoma City, couldn't figure this out, what makes you think you can? If a crew of 2 professional ATP-rated pilots in a turbine-powered twin could not legally depart under Part 135, why should you feel confident departing with your family under Part 91? That's why I'm staying on the ground until I can safely depart in better weather.
Now listen to the roundtable discussion where John is joined by Bruce Williams, Doug Stewart, Scott Denstead, Tom Haynes, and Tom Turner. Then visit the hangar to join the discussion.
Okay, we don't have time to listen to the instructors roundtable here, but as you can see, it was unanimous. None of our experts were going. And that hardly ever happens in IFR mastery, so there's definitely a strong message there. If you found this exercise useful, you can get 138 more scenarios just like it, covering all aspects of instrument flying. Just sign up for a free IFR Mastery trial subscription and we'll give you full access to all 138 scenarios, including the instructor roundtables, hangar discussions, quizzes, and live polls. At the end of the video, get more details on the IFR Mastery 30-day trial. Thanks for joining me today, and safe flying.